Have you ever wondered how a single moment could change your life forever? Beyoncé once overheard a pregnant cleaning lady singing one of her songs, and what happened next will leave you speechless. But before we dive into this incredible story, let me know, where are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments and keep watching to find out how this encounter turned into something extraordinary. Let's begin. It was a late evening, and the building was nearly empty. Distant footsteps echoed down the long hallways. Most people had already left for the night, but Angela, the pregnant janitor, remained behind, wiping down windows and sweeping the floor. Her body was weary, her feet ached, her back throbbed, but she kept going. She had no choice. As she moved, she began to hum softly, almost without realizing it. The hum grew into a melody, and soon she was singing aloud. Her voice trembled at first, but then soared, filling the quiet space with rich, emotional notes. It was Beyoncé's song, I Care, a song that spoke to dreams, pain, and resilience. Angela wasn't just singing the lyrics, she was living them. In that moment, the burden of her life seemed to lift ever so slightly. She could pretend, just for a while, that she was free from the worries that followed her everywhere. Unpaid bills, her mother's care, the baby she hadn't yet figured out how to provide for. At the end of the hallway, someone had stopped, silent, still. It wasn't a random passerby. It was Beyoncé herself. Beyoncé had come in through the side entrance after a meeting. She had planned to leave quickly, but the voice she heard stopped her in her tracks. She stood frozen, mesmerized, her heart catching in her throat. The notes Angela sang weren't perfect, but they were raw, full of something real. Beyoncé had heard thousands of voices in her life, but this one felt different. This wasn't just talent, it was a story told through song. Angela finished the verse, her voice softening into the final note. She let out a small sigh, lost in thought. When she turned toward the hallway and saw someone standing there, her breath hitched. Her eyes widened, and she instinctively placed a hand over her belly, as if to steady herself. The mop stick she had been holding clattered to the floor. Beyoncé took a step forward and smiled, her face warm and kind. "Keep singing," she said gently. Angela shook her head, stepping back. Her heart pounded, not from excitement, but fear. "I wasn't trying," Angela stammered. "I didn't know anyone was here." Beyoncé's smile softened. "It's okay," she said. "You've got a gift." Angela looked down, blinking rapidly as tears filled her eyes. She didn't feel like someone with a gift. She felt like someone barely holding on. Beyoncé noticed the change in her expression. The pride and surprise she expected to see weren't there. Instead, Angela's face crumpled with emotion, and silent tears slid down her cheeks. Beyoncé frowned, her heart tightening. "What's wrong?" she asked quietly. Angela wiped at her face with her sleeve, trying to compose herself. But the tears wouldn't stop. Her voice came out in a broken whisper. "Everything." Beyoncé pulled a nearby chair forward and gently gestured for Angela to sit. Angela hesitated but finally sank into the chair, her shoulders trembling with the weight of it all. For a few moments, Beyoncé said nothing. She just waited, letting Angela breathe. When Angela finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper, but the words poured out like a flood she couldn't hold back. "I work here every night until my feet feel like they're on fire. I'm trying to save enough to take care of my baby. But it's not just me. It's my mom too. She has dementia. Most days, she doesn't even remember who I am." Angela swallowed hard. She needs full-time care, but all I can afford is a home nurse for a few hours a week. Beyoncé's heart ached as she listened. She watched Angela's hands clutch her belly protectively, as though she could shield her unborn child from the storm of her life. "I love singing," Angela continued, her voice cracking. "It's the only thing that keeps me sane. But dreams don't pay the bills." She let out a bitter laugh that quickly turned into a sob. I stopped dreaming a long time ago." Beyoncé reached out and placed a gentle hand on Angela's shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone," she said, her voice steady. Angela's head shot up, her tear-stained eyes filled with disbelief. "What do you mean?" Beyoncé gave a small, knowing smile and leaned in closer. "Just wait," she whispered. For the first time in what felt like forever, something flickered in Angela's chest, a tiny spark of hope. She didn't know what Beyoncé meant, but in that moment, she realized something she had forgotten long ago. Beyoncé smiled through her tears. She pulled out her phone and quickly dialed a number. Angela watched, unsure of what was happening. Beyoncé spoke in low, clear tones. Angela couldn't make out everything, but she heard words like specialist, contract, and covered. After a few minutes, Beyoncé ended the call and turned back to Angela. "I just spoke to someone who can help," Beyoncé said gently. "First, your mom. She's going to get the care she needs, full time. You won't have to worry about a thing." Angela's breath caught. She stared at Beyoncé as though she hadn't heard her correctly. "Wait, what?" Beyoncé continued before Angela could process it all. "You're also going to be put on full pregnancy insurance. You'll get checkups, prenatal care, and whatever you and your baby need." Angela's eyes widened, and she covered her mouth with her hand. "And one more thing," Beyoncé added with a soft but determined smile. "I spoke to your manager. You're going to be on paid leave until after your baby is born." Angela gasped. "Paid leave?" Her voice shook. "But how?" Beyoncé's eyes twinkled. "Because I made sure of it," she said simply. "You deserve to rest. You deserve to breathe." Angela's whole body trembled. She felt as if she might float away, as if the walls of everything she'd been trapped in for so long had suddenly fallen away. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Why? Why would you do all this for me?" Beyoncé reached for Angela's hand again and squeezed it gently. "Because your voice deserves to be heard," she said. "You have a gift, Angela. And sometimes, the world needs a reminder that there's beauty in everyday people who refuse to give up." Tears streamed down Angela's face as she whispered, "Thank you." Beyoncé smiled, brushing a tear from her own cheek. "You've done so much on your own. Now, it's time for someone to lift you up." Angela couldn't speak. Her heart was too full. And as she sat there, holding Beyoncé's hand, for the first time in years, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. She felt hope. The next morning, Angela's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it. The screen showed a number she didn't recognize. "Hello," Angela answered, her voice hoarse. A calm voice on the other end spoke gently. "Good morning. This is Eastview Care Facility. We're calling to confirm that your mother's full-time care has been arranged, and all the bills have been paid in advance." Angela sat straight up in bed, her heart racing. "What did you say?" The woman on the phone repeated herself, this time slower, but the words still felt like a blur. "All the costs. Paid. Completely." Angela's voice cracked. "Yes, Mom," the woman confirmed. "We're ready to welcome her today, if that works for you." The phone slipped from Angela's hand as the weight of the news hit her like a wave. She fell to her knees beside the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. The months of anxiety, sleepless nights, and impossible choices came crashing down, released in a single outpouring of emotion. Her mother, her sweet, fragile mother, would finally have the care she needed. No more constant dread of something happening when Angela wasn't home. No more juggling nurse visits that never felt like enough. Before Angela could process it, her phone buzzed again. She fumbled to pick it up, wiping tears from her face. It was her boss from the cleaning company. "Angela, good news," her manager began. "We've approved your paid leave, effective immediately. You'll still receive your salary every month until after your baby is born." Angela gasped. "Is this real?" "Yes," he replied. "Take care of yourself. We'll be here when you're ready to come back." The call ended, and Angela sat in stunned silence, the foam still pressed to her ear. The world felt upside down. Just yesterday, she was working late into the night, holding her fears inside like a secret she couldn't share. And now, a knock at the door made her jump. She hurried to answer it, still barefoot and in her pajamas. When she opened the door, a delivery man stood holding several large boxes stacked neatly in his arms. "Delivery for Angela," he said with a smile. Angela blinked. "I think you have the wrong address." He shook his head. "Nope. This is for you. Have a great day." He handed her a clipboard, waited for her signature, and then walked off, leaving the boxes at her feet. Angela stared at them for a moment, almost afraid to open them. Slowly, she pulled the first box open, her fingers trembling. Inside was a pristine keyboard, sleek and brand new. Another box held a professional microphone set, and the last box revealed a full recording kit, complete with headphones and sound mixers. Her heart pounded in disbelief. She spotted a small envelope taped to the side of the last box. She tore it open and pulled out a card that simply read, "You're meant to sing. Don't stop. Love, Beyoncé." Angela pressed the note to her chest, her breath shaky. She sank into a chair, overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't name. She'd spent months drowning under the weight of worry, unable to see past the next day. Now, for the first time, she felt like she could breathe. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time, they weren't from fear or exhaustion. They were from something she thought she'd forgotten how to feel: joy. The following morning, Angela received another unexpected call. It was from a woman named Natalie, one of Beyoncé's assistants. "Angela. Hi, this is Natalie. Beyoncé has arranged for you to begin rehearsals at Horizon Studios today. Your first vocal session is at noon. The coaches are excited to meet you." Angela's stomach fluttered. "Wait, rehearsals? Me?" "Yes, you," Natalie said warmly. "We're sending a car to pick you up." At noon sharp, a sleek black car pulled up outside her small apartment. Angela stepped inside, feeling like she was in a dream. When the car stopped in front of the studio, she hesitated for a moment, staring at the glass doors ahead. "Come on," the driver encouraged. "This is your moment." Angela stepped out, took a deep breath, and walked inside. She was greeted by two vocal coaches with bright smiles and open arms. "Angela," one of them exclaimed, "we've been waiting for you." Their kindness washed over her like a warm embrace, easing the nerves that threatened to overwhelm her. She followed them into a spacious rehearsal room. As she stood in front of the microphone, nerves twisted her stomach into knots. But then she remembered the note, "Don't stop." She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and sang. The first note was soft, uncertain. But as the music filled the room, something shifted inside her. The fear melted away, replaced by the pure joy of doing what she loved. Her voice soared, steady and strong, carrying with it every ounce of pain, hope, and resilience she had stored in her heart. When she finished, the room was silent. One of the coaches clapped slowly, then the others joined in until the room filled with applause. Angela opened her eyes, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't feel invisible. "You're going to do amazing things," one of the coaches said, smiling. Angela's heart swelled. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was finally living, finally free to dream again. Weeks later, Angela stood in front of her mother, who was resting peacefully in a comfortable chair near the window of her new care facility. The soft morning light streamed in, warming the room. Her mother's frail hands rested gently in her lap, her breathing steady. Though her mother's eyes were distant, lost in a place Angela couldn't reach, her expression was calm, serene. The constant confusion and fear that used to cloud her face had been replaced by peace. Angela knelt beside her and took her mother's hand, brushing it softly with her thumb. "It's okay now," Angela whispered, her voice steady but full of emotion. She leaned in and kissed her mother's cheek, feeling the warmth of her skin. "I've got it from here, Mama." Her mother didn't respond, but Angela liked to believe that, somewhere deep inside, her mother understood. Angela stood, taking one last look before heading toward the door. She had spent so many nights praying for this moment, just to know her mother was safe, cared for, and at peace. And now that it had finally come, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Outside, the sun was shining. She paused on the front steps, closing her eyes as she tilted her face to the sky. Her belly, round with new life, rose and fell with each steady breath. The baby kicked softly, as if reminding her, "We're in this together." Angela smiled, resting her hand on her belly. She hadn't seen Beyoncé since that unforgettable night, but she didn't need to. Beyoncé's words had become a part of her, echoing in her heart whenever doubt threatened to creep in. Later that afternoon, Angela returned to her small but cozy apartment. She set her keys down, grabbed a glass of water, and sank into the couch. For a few moments, she simply sat there, letting the quiet settle around her. Her phone vibrated on the coffee table. She reached for it and noticed a new message. Her breath caught when she saw the sender's name, Beyoncé. With trembling fingers, she opened the message. "You'll always have my support. Now, go show the world what your voice can do." Angela's eyes filled with tears as she reread the message over and over, her heart swelling with something too big for words. Beyoncé hadn't forgotten her, but more importantly, she had reminded Angela of something she'd nearly forgotten herself. Her voice mattered. The following week, Angela stood in the same rehearsal studio where she had first begun vocal training. This time, she wasn't alone. A small group of local singers who had heard her story gathered in the room, eager to learn and be inspired. Angela stood at the front, microphone in hand, her heart pounding. She remembered how terrified she'd been the first time she stood in this spot. But today was different. Today, she felt steady, rooted. She smiled at the group. "I used to think dreams were for other people," she began, her voice warm but strong. "I thought my voice didn't matter, but someone reminded me that it does. And now, I'm here to remind you, your voice matters too." The room was silent, everyone hanging on her every word. Angela took a breath and began to sing. The first note felt like freedom. It wasn't just a song, it was a declaration, a promise to herself, to her baby, to everyone who had ever felt unseen. When she finished, the room erupted into applause. People wiped away tears and whispered to each other. Angela's story wasn't just a story, it was a testament to resilience, to Angela, to the power of being seen. In the months that followed, Angela's stories spread far beyond her city. Social media lit up with posts about the janitor with the golden voice, who had been discovered by Beyoncé. But the headlines weren't the most important part. What mattered most was the wave of hope that rippled through people's lives. Messages poured in from people all over the world. "Your story gave me the courage to pursue my passion again. Thank you for reminding me that it's never too late to dream. You helped me believe in second chances." Each message was a reminder that her voice, once buried under fear and exhaustion, had found its way into the hearts of others. The next day, Angela has gone to the hospital and she gave birth to a baby boy. One evening, as Angela sat in her living room, cradling her newborn baby boy, she hummed softly, a melody that felt familiar and new all at once. The baby cooed, his tiny hand reaching for her face. She whispered to him, "You're going to grow up knowing that your mama never gave up, and neither will you." The baby's eyes fluttered shut, his soft breathing filling the quiet space. Angela glanced at her phone, where Beyoncé's message still sat, unread since that first day. She smiled, not needing to open it again. She knew the words by heart, and she carried them with her, not as an ending, but as the beginning of something greater than she'd ever imagined. And though Beyoncé returned to the world stage, shining under the bright lights of sold-out arenas, Angela's story had taken on a life of its own. She didn't just have hope, she had a future. Her voice wasn't just heard, it was saved, nurtured, and set free. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. Your voice matters, just like Angela's. What would you have done in her shoes? And if this reminder of hope and kindness moved you, hit that subscribe button and join us for more stories that celebrate resilience, compassion, and the power of dreams. Because sometimes, one small act of Angela can change everything. Don't forget to like, share, and spread the love. Someone out there may need this story today.